So what's going on, YouTube? Basically what I was saying was we have to break ourselves all the way down to build ourselves all the way up. Now, this is the part 2 that I was talking about. So I'll just get to the meat of the story. Basically it's like this. At the time I started business, right around the time I started business, that's when 9/11 hit. Okay? And all I would hear from business guys, mostly American business guys, was the same thing. Like, oh, my business is the same since 9/11. Oh, my thing is this. So then, after a while, after I heard this for a while, I started asking questions. Well, what are you doing different now that 9/11 hits? Are you doing the same thing before 9/11 hit? And a lot of them would answer the question, of course I'm doing the same thing. So basically at that point it told me this, that they had their business on automatic pilot. And I learned very fast that just because something is going good right now doesn't mean it's going to go good in the future. You're going to have problems that happen at 9/11. You're going to have competition. You're going to have all of these things. So I learned to think ahead in order to protect your business for future problems. And another thing I learned that was very interesting is that most of the American partners and business people that I've met, they all brought their products in the U.S. And when they bought their products and they tried to mark these products up, they would always complain about how people weren't buying because they said that their product was too expensive. But then I also noticed in my years of doing business, the Chinese. I wouldn't say the Chinese, because it's not just the Chinese. I would just say Asian people. I noticed in this business that a lot of them didn't really have many ideas. I'm going to explain what I'm talking about. They were what I would call copycats. A lot of them would come and see a product I had or see things I had, and they will be like looking at it, and they'll start asking questions. And at first I was kind of dumb. I was like, why is this guy asking so many questions? But then I found out later on that actually they were taking the product and they were duplicating the product in China and come back and sell the same product at your particular event. And after a while, you know, the same Americans that said 9/11 was the business, 9/11 caused this, now they began complaining again. Because now they said, oh my gosh, the Asians are actually taking our product and they're selling it. Now they're selling for a cheaper price and they're trying to sell it to us. How dare them? Complaining. So then I had to make a decision. Am I going to sit here and fold my arms and complain about what they're doing? Or I'm going to compete against them? So I chose the second one. Talked to a friend of mine who knew some contacts in Hong Kong. The same guy that told me about, hey, you know, you should get your car, you know, turn your car in, you should make some better financial choices. So what did I do? Him and I caught the first thing smoking, went to Hong Kong. Met there on ground with that gentleman, and this guy showed us all the contacts. He showed us how China works. He showed us how Hong Kong is successful. He showed us everything about the country, because his family was in the business also. And I became amazed at that point. So we were there for 10 days that time. And I'm looking around and looking at these business people and looking at things. I actually saw businesses on steroids. Let me tell you something about China. Just like when you go to Vegas and you see all the casinos and people think that everybody in Vegas works in casinos, when you go to China, the meat of it, you would think that everybody in China is a business person. Which probably a lot of them are, but some are workers too. But just from so much activity going on, you will see business to the nth degree. I mean, it's just basically, it's on steroids there. So I started talking to gentlemen there, talking to businessmen from Africa, South Africa, Europe, bright young individuals, and just basically talking to them about business. That was basically like going to the Harvard Business School during that point. I learned that if you want to sell a product, if you want to have a service, you have to have the best price. You have to have the best price to offer and the best product. If you put those two things together, you'll be successful. So I learned from them. I learned contacts. I learned things. I came back. I shared it with my wife, and I was pumped. I was pumped. Then I said, you know what? I can't explain to you what actually happens. You're gonna have to come with me. So the second time, my wife and I went. This time we went further than Hong Kong. We went to Hong Kong, we went to Shenzhen, we went to Guangzhou. We went to these places. And I remember going to Guangzhou, and if I would have took a camera out and snapped a photo, I think I would have taken a photo of every person from every country in the world. They had one of the biggest trade shows I've seen in my life. And it was just on steroids. I remember walking into a McDonald's, and there was over, I would say there was at least 1,000 people in line. This McDonald's was huge. Do you know that I had my meal in probably 5 minutes? With that many people in line in that area, I had my meal in 5 minutes. This is how bright and this is how innovative the Chinese people are. They don't sit in line. They work. They make things happen. Some of their, I will say this, they're not the most creative people, but they do know how to take an idea and run with it. They fit in the category of this: don't invent, reinvent. A lot of them won't really reinvent your product. They actually invent the same thing you have, but at least they do something. They keep the motor running. So I looked at this and I was just like, wow, I'm going to have to catch this train. And the day I left that place in China, I established contacts, and then that's when I actually started doing business in China, and that's when my business went from here to there, immediately. And then I started to think on a global level versus, local level, because that's another reason why businesses fail too. Like, I see these little small businesses that open up in my town, and then I just start counting down the days. Okay, today is August, they'll be closed by next year. And lo and behold, they're closed by next year. Why? One, their customer base is too small. Two, they borrowed money from a bank in order to start their business. So whether the business is doing bad or good, they still have to pay. Once they pay that loan and they haven't made any profits and they don't have a lot of money to stash anyway, guess what? Problems. So I pursued my degree. I finished my degree in international business. I had the China deal going on. And then now I just started thinking on business on a global level. I have friends that say, hey, come to New Zealand and do business. Boom, product is there. Hey, I got some opportunities in Australia. Boom, product is there. I no longer, see, the reason why the recession doesn't bother me is because I expanded my customer base. I think on a global level. When people look for jobs, they look for jobs in their hometown. If your hometown, the population is only 10,000 people, right? And there's only maybe 5,000 jobs available at that time, whatever, you probably won't have much chances to get a job. I mean, guys, are you going to complain day after day after day about a job when there's none? That's very scarce jobs. If you can't find a job, you have to be creative. If you do find a job, you have to be creative. Are you going to be like those guys that fold their arms up and say, my business has been the same since 9/11? Or are you going to be the person that say, hey, business is down, but I have to do more in order to get more? Business, there'll be sometimes, I'm going to tell you right now, some years in business is going to be great. Some years in business is not going to be great. What are you going to do when those times are not so great? You're going to have to do more to balance it off. I don't want to set my business on automatic pilot. I want to continue to grow, continue to learn. Went to Nicaragua, it didn't go as I thought it was. But I guarantee you, I learned more in Nicaragua than I would learn in any business school in the world. But I had hands-on knowledge. I had hands-on when I was there. That was it. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell, guys. I just basically learned to think on a global level, and that helped me. That helped my income grow dramatically, And so I guess the lesson I took from this and I would tell you is this: don't think small. Think big, but think big without borrowing money. Think of how you can get your product or your service to other people without actually borrowing money. If you can figure that out, you're already on the road to success. So until next time, guys, signing off.